Alumni Relations and Advancement Programming. I work closely with our student alumni ambassadors, our Y and Selmy and population, our graduates of last decade, and on-campus alumni events. I'm excited that we are continuing our remote learning webinar series today with our student panel. The idea for this panel was brought to us by one of our student alumni ambassadors and panelists, Andrew Ferralt, class of 2022. Today's webinar will be moderated by Senior Sarah El-Khoury, class of 2021. Sarah is a communications major and peace and justice minor, the director of Campus Activities Board, and an active member on campus. Before you hear from Sarah and the students, I wanted to remind you that the College Advancement Team is committed to keeping our alumni and friends engaged with offering webinars, podcasts, and fun social media challenges. Be sure to keep an eye out for our weekly and Selmy Connections email list that list upcoming events and opportunities to stay connected. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the college's website for those who could not make it live today. Please use the Q&A button on your screen to submit questions to the students. Now I'm happy to introduce you to Senior Sarah El-Khoury.
Thank you so much, Kylie, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am super excited to have you all here and be the moderator for this amazing panel, these wonderful students. And I'm also very excited to soon be a part of the alumni network that we have. A little wild and exciting, but I'm very looking forward to it. So today we are going to be having our amazing panelists from the senior class all the way to the freshman class. I'm going to be introducing our panelists to you, and then after I introduce them, they will be sharing a little bit about themselves, and we will get right into the start of our questions. So starting off, we have Joe Venuti, who is part of the class of 2021. And then we have Andrew Ferralt, who is part of the class of 2022, Ashley Locke Hunter, class of the 2022 as well, Yi Peng, class of 2023, and Saylor Garcia, class of 2024. If you want to go ahead and start, Joe, would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, of course. So again, my name is Joe Venuti. I'm a criminal justice major and Russian area studies minor here at the college, again, in my senior year, unfortunately. Not looking forward to my time here coming to an end, but it means I get to join a great group of alumni, and it means I've got some great stories to share from my years here. So looking forward to talking with you all today.
Thank you, Joe. Andrew, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew. I'm a junior psychology major, neuroscience minor. And as Kylie said, I am the reunion committee head for the student alumni ambassadors.
Thank you, Andrew. Ashley, would you like to go ahead?
Everyone, I'm Ashley Locke Hunter. I am a junior elementary education major with minors in ESOL and Spanish. And I'm also a part of the student alumni ambassadors like Andrew and Kylie, and I'm also a transitions peer mentor on campus.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, how about Yi? Would you like to go ahead?
Hi, everyone. My name is Yi, and I'm a sophomore. I'm also an international student from China, and I'm a mathematics major on campus. And I'm also part of the Intercultural Center Transition Program. I'm a peer mentor.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Saylor, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
And I serve as a senator for the class of 2024.
Thank you, Saylor. All right, so since we have just had everyone introduce themselves, we're going to start off with a few questions that we have gotten in, and then we will go into a Q&A opening. So first question that we wanted to start off with was for Saylor. If you would like to answer this for us, the question is, since this is your first year on campus, what was it like moving to campus during the pandemic? And how has your experience been so far, since it's not really a normal semester?
Hi, so the move-in process actually went really smoothly, in my opinion. I moved on campus a little bit early because I did the transitions program. That was really fun. I definitely think if I didn't do transitions, finding friends on campus within those first 2 weeks would have been a little bit more difficult for me. But things have been really good. I ran as a senator on a whim and I won, and that's been really awesome to get involved in that way. I'm also part of the Student Response Task Force, which is a subcommittee within student government, and our job has been to find out about kind of how students are feeling about the COVID restrictions and just their opinions on it. What has worked, what hasn't worked. Um, and that's been really good to be a part of that and just hearing what people have to say.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and start off with Andrew as well. So, Andrew, what was your transition like for you in the springtime and then again this fall? And how have your classes challenged you during this time?
Thank you, Sarah. It's definitely been a fairly large transition from, in the springtime, going home, moving online. I think it's been very difficult for a lot of students to adjust to not being in person as much, getting used to Zoom. It's definitely, there are a lot more distractions that can be present on the computer within Zoom. So that's definitely been a tough transition, and as well as organization. You have that face-to-face ability with your professor when you're in person, and over Zoom, it's a lot harder to get that. So that's been really tough. At the same time, there have been some really great things that have come out of this transition. One of the things that I've really appreciated is after class, with a lot of my professors, I've had the opportunity online to meet with them one-on-one and just kind of stay behind, kind of like you would in person. So I've really appreciated that. But overall, I think the transition has gone pretty well. I think myself and most students are now at the end of fall semester. We have a semester and a half of education in the context of a pandemic. And I think most students, including myself, are beginning to feel a little bit more used to the change.
Thank you, Andrew. Ashley, this one's for you. What has been your experience so far with online learning, and what do you find the most challenging, but also what has been some of the enjoyable aspects of it?
So for me, the transition, like Drew was saying, was a little bit difficult because I'm not used to being on Zoom all the time, and it's a different experience being in the classroom virtually rather than being in person. But so far, Zoom has been it's been helpful by being able to meet with some of my professors after classes or even meeting more often because they're home and able to be on Zoom instead of just going to an office hour. So it's been very helpful. I'm really excited that the semester is been going well and that it's coming to a close because it has been a little bit challenging at times, but now that I have been adapted to it, it's been better. But some of the pros from it I've learned to be able to teach. So I'm an education major. Some of my professors have taught us some virtual modalities that I can use in my future career.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. This is going to go for everyone, so please feel free to jump in and answer this question. In the faculty panel, we talked a lot with the faculty members about ways they have become more innovative in their teaching during the pandemic. We're interested to hear from you as students, what has been a positive surprise or innovation from learning in a pandemic? And has there been anything that you tried or said, yeah, I'm never doing this ever again and it's not working for me? So please feel free to answer.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I can speak to on this matter. So first, I will say that professors, faculty have partaken in a ton of innovation in online teaching. A couple of things that I've appreciated is the ability of breakout rooms on Zoom. So for those of you that might not be familiar with Zoom, a breakout room gives students and the professor a chance to have small group discussions separately. So the professor will send 3, 4, 5 students into a breakout room, and you can discuss whatever topic within a class in that breakout room or work on a project together. So I found that a very helpful function of Zoom. I think sometimes in class it's a little harder to break off as a group with a few students and be able to focus just because you have everybody around you. and everybody else is talking. So whereas the breakout rooms are private, they're more quiet. The professor can pop in and out, ask questions. So that's been very good. And a thing that I've found, on the question, the note, never do that again. I personally am not a fan of simulcasting classes. So in the hybrid model, a lot of professors, what they'll do is we'll go in person one day, half the class will go in person one day, and the other half will be simulcast. So we will be watching the classroom via Zoom while the other half is in person. I personally found that that's not very effective. It's hard to participate in class on simulcast. It's hard to focus, hard to get questions in. So unfortunately, I think that's a function for myself that I have found has not been very effective, but other people may feel differently.
No, I'm with you on pretty much all of that right there. The simulcast has been a bit tough, but having those breakout rooms has been a lot more helpful. One of the things from Zoom that I've also found is that, especially with my thesis going on this semester and everything, usually I'd be meeting a lot with my professor, but again, you can't really do that in person now, and so we've been doing a lot of it on Zoom, which has actually made stuff a lot easier because whenever I have a quick problem or something that I need answered, I can quickly just email her and say, hey, I have this quick question. Would you be around sometime later today? Because neither of us have to worry about travel times or anything. Sometimes she'll even email back, hey, if you just call me right now, I can go over this with you quickly. And so I've been able to actually have a lot more meetings with my professor and get a lot more questions answered than I think I would have been able to during a normal year. So that's been really helpful, along with the fact that using things like Canvas a lot more, which is our educational tool. Basically, professors post their classes and they can post assignments and coursework and whatnot. Has actually helped me stay a lot more organized than I normally would be. So between the two things, I've seen more pros than cons, honestly.
I'm going to hop in super quick. It's actually really interesting just because from a internship job perspective, the hybrid model or the online classes have been very helpful just because they make you hold yourself accountable. I just applied for an internship that I got a few days ago, and a lot of my interviews surrounded like how are you able to keep yourself accountable? How are you keeping yourself on task? And being able to have the experience before I graduate with possibly not having any classes in person, having to do all the work myself has really helped with me, at least holding myself accountable and keeping my work up to date and going. Especially when a lot of jobs right now are virtual, they're not in person. So being able to graduate and have the already on hand experience of doing the work yourself and not having to go into the office or rely on somebody else to help has been very helpful, especially with COVID right now. Awesome. So I'm going to keep going with the questions that we have. This one is going to go to Andrew. Could you explain about what a typical day is in class for you? I know you've talked about it a little bit, but what do you find to be the most challenging part of your day, especially since you're all so busy and you have so much going on?
Right. So I have a very varying schedule day by day, just because of the nature of the classes that I'm taking right now. And with the hybrid model, as I said, we'll alternate days in a lot of my classes. I do have one class that's fully on Zoom. And then the rest of my classes are split models. So half in person, half is simulcast. And then one of them, actually kind of going back to the last question, is a flipped classroom. And we go every other day. So we do not do simulcast. And so with that, what we do is we watch the lectures online. This is chemistry. We watch the lectures online. She goes over the PowerPoints, shows us the equations and how to do it. And then in class, we practice what we learned on online, which I've found has been very helpful. So in a typical day, I'll probably be about 30% in person, or a typical week. I think it's better to take it into a week. Typical week, I'll be about 30% in person, 70% online. And the most challenging part of my busy days, I think for me, is hierarchically ordering tasks that are most important to complete first, especially academically. I think for me personally, it's been a lot harder to organize when I need to do things and when they need to be done. And so I think just, the lack of being in person as much has kind of created that. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is for our lovely senior on the Zoom call. Joe, this has definitely not been a typical senior year for us. How do you feel like our class has been supporting each other during the unique semester? And what has been your experience with this transition into senior year? I know we are all about traditions here. Have there been new traditions you've created with your friends or groups that you work with or involved in?
So definitely an interesting year to have a senior year. And I think senior always has a way of bringing classes together. And I feel like this one especially has, just because we're all going through, a shared difficult experience. And so we've definitely found, different ways. I think everyone has kind of within their friend groups, then as a class as a whole, found, ways to cope with the different circumstances. And so, you can't really hang out like you normally would. And so, me and my friends have found certain places on campus that we like to go and hang out. We'll actually end up taking walks on the cross country trails and stuff like that, stuff that we actually normally wouldn't have done in years past. But as a larger class, I think we'll really come together as well. I think senior class gifts has actually had much more of a presence than they ever really have in years past. They've done so much to bring us together and really rally the class behind a great cause. And I think just, in passing and whatnot, we've all been really helping pick each other up and stuff as well. We live quite close to each other up in the upper part of campus. And so I've seen, us hanging out on the quads and whatnot, especially during the beginning of the year when it was a little bit nicer weather. We were all coming out, we can't, combine and collect like we normally would to hang out, but we've been, doing a lot, as much as we can to, stay safe, but also, still come together as a class. So, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but.
Yeah, just last week, since it was so, this past weekend, since it was nice out, although we're in family units, my close friend groups and I, and with outside of our apartments, we got together and had a mini Christmas feast and a mini gingerbread competition just with us. So we're trying to keep all the traditions alive. I know the campus is already starting to decorate for Christmas to try and make sure that we at least see some of that before we head out. And I know a lot of the different dorms and apartments are also decorating. So we're doing our best to make sure that we're keeping the traditions going and making our own new ones if we need to. Awesome. Thank you, Joe. So I am going to ask a question for Yi. If you will answer for me, please. As a student in the STEM field, we know that hands-on learning and collaborating with classmates is super valuable. What are some ways that your professor have pivoted using online technology and online education?
Thank you, Sarah. So definitely it's a big transition from in person to on Zoom. But a big shout out to my the math department. All the professor put in a lot of effort. So luckily we still have majority of the class in person, and we still do group project, but 6 feet apart, with the chair. So still it's been going on well with all the professor helping, and they expanded their office hours. So the office hours mostly on Zoom, and it's easier and helpful because you can just log in whenever they're online. So it's been good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. This is going to go to Ashley. Ashley, you are an education major. So in your education classes, have you started learning more about virtual or hybrid teaching? I know you brought it up a little bit earlier, but what have kind of been the strategies you guys have talked about or ways you're engaging in class during this unique experience?
Yeah, so in many of my ed classes in the past, I would be using a lot of modalities and actual hands-on activities. So because we cannot do actual hands-on in person, I've learned in my mathematics course, Professor Sherman has found many websites that incorporate mathematical tools. So, for example, we used a website based on math-based 10 blocks, which are used to show students how to like count with like in class. Like you can have like a base 10 block of 100, you have the counts of 10, it's like regrouping. So we learned that in teaching, if we'd have to teach remotely again in our career, that we can teach the base 10 blocks in person, and even our students will be able to practice outside of class with the website. And that a lot of students are visual learners, so this tool is very effective for them as well as us to teach them efficiently. So I really believe that this class, especially Professor Sherman, has taught us a lot about adapting to the challenge that virtual learning is. And so that's like one of the examples that I've learned in class to use in my future.
Awesome, thank you. This is going for everyone, and I know we've touched upon this a lot, but what has been the most challenging part for you guys when it comes to virtual learning? I know we've talked about Zoom and not having in-person contact with each other, but what specifically has really been hard for you as a person in your year, but also as your specific major?
I'll go ahead. I'm personally someone who learns by participation and application. Online, it is certainly much harder to participate. I outlined some examples previously about why that is, but I think certainly that's been a challenge for me. I think another challenge is, especially with the classes that are more asynchronous, you tend to lose track, at least myself, I tend to lose track of what's going on or excuse me, when things might be due or just what's coming up, just because when you're not in class, you don't have the constant reminder like, okay, this is coming Wednesday, this is coming Friday. And that's the schedule for next week and the week after it. You just, when you're in class, you get a lot more of those reminders, I guess. The professor says, okay, next class. Whereas on an asynchronous, it's just you got to look at the canvas and know what's coming.
I can go next.
And
So in my biggest challenge is probably like Andrew's. Oh, sorry, Sailor. I learned, so going back to it, I struggled with these like Zoom fatigue. So being on Zoom constantly, I would have back-to-back classes being synchronous. So that'd be a challenge, and also like participation became an issue in some classes because we don't have the actual raising hands in person or taking turns in class as much as we would on Zoom. So I feel like the breakout rooms have been a good adjustment to our classes, but it has been a challenge to participate and actually be able to learn some of the concepts that I would in person. For example, I would be like teaching in a classroom at this moment, whereas right now I cannot be in the elementary schools. That's my difficulty with some of my assignments because we actually need to have some of the students being with us for some assignments. So that has been a challenge, but I feel like our professors have been adapting and giving many like different like assignments that they've taken from past students' work.
Do you want to go ahead, Sailor? I thought you had something to say. Thank you, Ashley.
can you guys hear me? Okay. So I was just saying I write down like everything in my planner. Yeah, I still don't really know what's ever going on in my classes. And I think it's just because we're not always going, you know what I mean? I definitely think online learning has messed up my attention span big time. And it's just hard to feel motivated sometimes to do the work for the class just because when you're not going every day, like the class just starts to like not feel like it's a real class. And so that can just feel hard to feel like engaged and connected with the class.
Awesome. Thank you, Sailor. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? No? Okay. We will continue on with our questions. This one's actually going to you, Sailor, as well. So This has been quite a year, but this has also been an election year, and election years always present some amount of stress but excitement to our country and our society. As a politics major, what is it like in your classes right now during an election year and a global pandemic?
Yeah, so actually after the first or second debate, my American government teacher got pretty ill and had to get emergency surgery. So that really sucked, but he came back yesterday for the first time, so that was really exciting. We got to like actually talk about the election and stuff. But the political climate here is just crazy because there's always someone like anywhere on the political spectrum, which I think is really cool. Where I grew up in Florida was very conservative, and then where I went to high school was very liberal. So it's like here and now I'm just getting like best of both worlds. I get to hear both point of views a lot. And so I went to the debate watch parties and the election watch parties at the NIOP, and they were put on by the NIOP ambassadors, and those were really cool. They were just really good social opportunities to kind of learn more, hear other perspectives. We watched as the votes were counted and like where the states were going, and that was so fun. It was stressful, but it was fun. And yesterday there was actually a common grounds event, and so that's just an event that people just get to talk, debate, but in a friendly, nice, productive way. And we talked about election results, and that was just it was a good opportunity just to hear what other people thought and what other people's opinions were.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is going for Joe. So you're currently a criminal justice major. With the current climate in the world, how have your current class topics changed over the past few years? Have you talked about working in the field during the time of the pandemic, or what's really been kind of the focus point in your classes?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So even before the whole climate became what it is and whatnot, and before the pandemic, a lot of our classes were really focused on the disparities within the system, and things that needed to change. And so the goal of all the professors, I feel like, has always been to not only teach us what the field is and what it does, but also what the problems are with it, so that we're not going in just following whatever's in the field. We're going in with the mindset that we can help evolve the field and help change the field to what it needs to become. And so a lot of the classes, like especially like I was taking criminal law classes, looked at the arrest rates of certain places, and how different minorities were targeted more, and mainly because of over policing practices and whatnot, and basically ways that they could be changed, and also just giving us these ideas so that we can come up with our own ideas of how it could change. And so even before everything got so much bigger and so much more prominent this year, they were focusing on those problems within the system, and trying to kind of point us at them and say, hey, these are things that need to be fixed. And so they've always been really good at focusing on the bad in the system as well as the good. And so that's been really awesome. And obviously that's grown in this year. I haven't been able to take as many classes this year because I've been focusing more on cores as well as my thesis. But from what I've heard from my other colleagues in the CJ program, they've been doing a lot towards that. In terms of working during a pandemic, I think the field itself is still figuring that out. And so here ourselves, we don't really have an idea of how to prepare for that. Obviously, it's a lot of looking out for each other, and and making sure you're following safety practices. But when you're going into a job that you're interacting with people, that is your job. You have to interact with people to help them, to protect them, to keep them safe. That's just kind of it's become just a hazard of the job at this point. I've actually been able to work with and talk with different chiefs of police in certain towns, and that's basically what they've said. It's just it's just become an occupational hazard because of the nature of the job. So definitely a lot of good happening in the CJ program here, and they're trying to prepare us as best they can for when we leave.
Thank you, Joe. Yi, I have one final question for you. You've talked a little bit about your major virtually and how much your professors have been doing their best when it comes to group work and just work in general. What has been your specific experience so far with online learning, and what are some things that you find challenging, but also enjoyable when it comes to it.
Thank you, Sarah. So I think the most enjoyable part is like it's more easy to manage office hours with professors when like sometimes you just send them the email like saying like can you meet at this time, they would like reply like immediately, and like it's easier like to meet rather than like meeting in person. And I think like the most challenging part, like going after like what everyone just said, is like it's hard to be on top of everything, and sometimes it just like wears you off and everything is just like online. It could be like a little bit hard. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you.
I have one final question for everyone in the panel, and then we are going to open up to our Q&A for all those that have joined us. So my last question for you all is, what has been your favorite part about being back on campus? And have you all specifically within your friend groups or within different organizations you're part of been able to continue certain traditions since you've been back?
Yeah, I can answer this. So I think just being back on campus in general is amazing. We're very lucky to be back on campus. I think there's a reason that I think it's 98% of St. Anselm College students live on campus. And that's because of the culture here. Everybody's, very accepting. There's just a huge college community. I'm sure as many of you alums know. In terms of traditions, one thing that we were able to continue this year, unfortunately without alumni, but for the students, was the homestaying weekend. So instead of homecoming, it was homestaying. And so basically we did a lot of similar events that we would do during homecoming. We had food trucks, and we had the 5K fun run and a cornhole tournament. Unfortunately, we couldn't have the homecoming football game this year, but we were able to bring back a lot of those traditions for students at least, and that was really great. And within friend groups, in terms of being on campus, we have been able to continue some of the traditions. Even just as simple as being able to go to Dave in the morning before your classes with a couple of friends and sit down and have a meal before you start your day. Things as little as that. It's been very nice. It's kind of breaking when you compare spring semester online being home and being here. It's just been nice to be on campus, be around the community, rather than being within the four walls of a house.
Thanks, Andrew. Does anybody else want to add to that for your personal experiences? Okay. I think that's it then. So we are going to get right into the Q&A. We already have a few questions in place. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them in and we will go ahead and answer them for you. So we are going to start with an alum from the class of 2008. Thank you for joining us. And the question is, one of the most important things for my time on the Hilltop was the tight-knit community on campus. How have you experienced that community during the pandemic? And what else do you think the college could do to create more of a community during this challenging time?
I mean, from what I've seen, I certainly think that more than just like any other semester, the close-knit community has shown itself, but in very different ways. Because instead of looking to be together or looking to do certain things together and do good for the community, we've really looked more inward and looked at protecting each other and helping each other out during this time. Because we're really because of the community, that close-knit community, I think is why we've been able to come back and be so successful compared to other schools who have also gone back. The community really has been looking out for each other for the most part, and trying our best to make sure that we can succeed and stay on campus with all the health concerns that are happening. And even through groups like CAB, which Sarah has done an amazing job with this year, especially with everything going on and all the loops that they had to jump through. All those different organizations, like CAB, like Campus Ministry, Melia Center, have all still been able to help foster that community. And even if we can't leave campus to go and do good in the community outside of our community, they've found ways that, to bring the community to us to be able to, do stuff on campus that's also going to help the outside community. So I think the tight, close-knit community here has still shown itself, but just in different ways.
If I could kind of add to that, at the end of the question, you ask, what else do you think the college could do to create more of a community during this challenging time? I think the college has done a lot to create a community in a time where community is of utmost importance, in the context of living on a college campus. And we all need to get along. We all need to find ways to get outside of the classroom, distract ourselves from outside factors, all those things. And ultimately, I think the opportunities have been there from the college's perspective, to create more community. I think at the end of the day, if not that there needs to be more community created, but I think the college has given us the tools, and ultimately it's up to the students to use those tools to grow the community.
Thank you, everyone. From a student affairs perspective, I think that they have done amazing with allowing us to go into the campus ministry offices and the Melee Center offices and intercultural. We've been able to go into the offices and hang out as much as we can with all the policies in place. I mean, campus ministry, they have tables and chairs moved around to make sure that there's 9 people able to sit in there, but they do their best to have others allow others to come in. Intercultural, you can still go in there and sit in the back room and hang out with friends as long as everyone is wearing masks and being careful. So the community is still there, and even Melee Center is having their holiday fair this semester, but just in a different way where it's virtual. They're still providing all the tools for the community, but we're taking videos and recording ourselves when it comes to it. So, I mean, saying that the community has changed, I don't think it has. It's just evolved in a very different way to make sure that we're all, like Joe said, keeping each other safe. And at the end of the day, that's what it means to be hospitable and a part of our community on campus. So we're doing our best to keep us and the Manchester community safe as well. I am going to continue on with the questions. Our next question is, what has Saint A's been doing to make the semester successful compared to what some of your other friends' schools are doing?
First and foremost, they let us come back on campus, which was huge. I know I have a lot of other friends who are also seniors who, they didn't come back, or they didn't go back to campus, and it's all online, and that's made senior year tough. But other than that, they've also done a lot of initiatives outside of that, they put up tents on the quads so that we have places to go outside, even if it's rainier or something, so that we can still hang out with friends. They have the crop circles that they've made for classes, so that, you can still have larger classes, but we're having them outside and we're having them spread out. And so, doing those little things that, instead of just deciding to put all the classes online, they're doing their best to make it work for us. And so, just those little things, show that they're committed to taking care of us, and, they're giving us the chance to take care of each other. And really get the most out of our experience, even though it's being kind of blocked a little bit by what's happening right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I can compare this to other schools, but one thing I think St. A's has done well to make this semester successful for its students is, they've really done their best to listen to their students and hear their voices throughout this whole thing. Obviously, there are things, within the COVID restrictions or just things that are new this semester that not everybody's happy about, but they've certainly done a very good job of listening to what the students have to say, what's worked, what they think is working, what's not working, and making adjustments where they think adjustments can be made. And I think that's a lot of where the success has come from. I think that, at the college, the students, they have to make sure that trying to think of how to put this, I apologize. That at the end of the day, they've done a very good job at making sure they're doing their best to make sure that we're getting the best education we can and still keeping, the community and the things we talked about previously.
Sailor, do you want to go ahead and add to that? Thank you, Andrew. I think you had something to say earlier. You're on mute. No, okay. We'll come back to that. If you do have anything, just when it works, you go ahead and just fire it out. Anyone else have anything to add before I go to my next question that we have in the Q&A? Try again. It's not, I know.
Yeah.
There you go. It's working now.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I don't know why my Zoom is actually the worst. So what I was gonna say is that one thing I've noticed is the way the school has responded to the 2 outbreaks we've had. Like we had 10 cases one time, 14 cases the other time, I think. But they have such a big response every time. They really address it really well. And from what I've noticed with my other friend's school, I mean, obviously I just got out of high school, so I still talk a lot with them. They get like over 30 cases and the school's just like, oh, well, okay. But this school just takes it so seriously, which I just think is very good.
Thank you, Sailor. All right. The next question we have is, how do you all as students, including myself, do we handle distractions and stay engaged knowing many of us are attending classes from our dorms?
For myself and my roommates, we create a system. We all talk to when our classes are, for example. We all have many Zoom classes, and we live in an apartment this year. There's 5 of us that live in the apartment, and that it really works well for us. We decide who's going and where, which day. Like I can go to the kitchen one day, I go in my room the next day. We go in the library, the student center. We definitely made it work to figure out where we would go, and then distractions have been minimal, I guess I could say. I feel like distractions, they happen. It is a different type of learning style this year, and our professors are they're understanding, they're considerate of everything that comes into action with the Zoom calls. But I feel like Zoom calls have been engaging, and they really try to make it interesting for us this year.
I think another aspect of handling distractions is just exhibiting lots of conscious self-control when on the computer, when on Zoom. Of course, there's a lot less accountability when you're behind a camera and you have the option to shut off your camera than being in the front of a classroom in front of a professor. It's a lot easier to distract yourself. It's a lot easier to not have the accountability of, oh, the professor's watching me. I need to make sure I'm focusing so they don't think I'm, slacking off or not paying attention or don't care about their class, which I think for a lot of students is psychologically, at least, part of the way they keep engaged. You get an email popping up on the screen or a Canvas notification, and it's really easy to just click, move your mouse and click over to it, and then all of a sudden you're 15 minutes into reading an email thread while you're in class. And it's, so I think one of the biggest aspects is just you need to be conscious about it and exhibit that self-control when you're online, because, like I said, there's a little bit less accountability than being in person in a classroom.
Thanks, Andrew. Does anybody else have anything to add or to share? No? Okay. So we will go to our final question, I believe. If you have any other questions before we finish off, please feel free to send them in. But this final question is directed at the mood on campus. So what has been the general mood of students on campus? Are students feeling anxious and stressed with academics, in your opinions?
I think, with everything going on, I think anxiety is definitely something that's happening on campus. I mean, it's you already come in with anxiety because of what's happening in the world, and then just having to transition to different classes and whatnot does it just all adds on top of each other. So I do think the mood on campus has been a little bit more stressed out than normal, has been a little bit more anxious than normal, but nothing too over the top. It's definitely still been manageable and whatnot. It's just getting used to everything happening at once. And just working through that. So it definitely a little bit more stressed, a little bit more anxious, but not too much, at least from what I've seen.
From what I've observed, just through conversation with peers, professors, and peers and professors alike, I think what I've heard is the general consensus is this semester academically has been more stressful. There has been more anxiety, and I think that just comes with the change. And they, of course, there are a lot of extraneous factors. I think a big source of stress and anxiety has been the unbelievably polarized election year, which of course has been on everybody, most people's minds a lot, on top of the pandemic. So I think it's been different, but at the same time, I think the general mood of students on campus has still been very good. I think it's still the same happy campus that we're used to seeing as well.
Thank you. We did have one last question come in. This kind of follows along the stress and the mood of campus. How do you guys feel like faculty have been when it comes to grading? Do you think they've been a bit more lenient than they usually would be, or are they the same or harder when it comes to it?
I don't think that professors have necessarily been more lenient with grading an individual assignment itself. Um, I think professors have been more lenient on giving extensions, possibly, taking off credit for late work, things like that. I think professors are very understanding of everything that's going on right now and the stress that comes with it. And I think we're all in the same boat. And that being said, I think they've been more lenient in that way. But
No, I completely agree with Drew there. They definitely have. I know from my perspective, they've definitely been a lot more lenient in terms of giving extensions and whatnot, because they understand that there are, again, a lot of extraneous factors that are affecting what's happening right now. So definitely more lenient with that, but definitely the same with grading. I lost my train of thought. There was one other thing I was going to say, and I've just completely lost it. I'll come back to you.
Anybody else have anything else to add? Okay, I'm going to go to the next question then. This is also adding on to this past question, and this is specifically to us not having a break this semester, and not really being able to go off campus because of this bubble and the idea that we have of staying on campus. Do you guys feel like we've had enough fun activities to take the stress levels down?
Personally, I believe the school has been doing an amazing job of creating fun activities throughout the semester. They've added extra movie nights. They've had different food trucks coming in. They've had cab. Really going to you, Sarah. Thank you so much. You guys have been doing an amazing job with cab and having the events. For example, Kabingo. I never thought we would be able to have Kabingo or events similar to that because of how many people typically attend. But our campus has been creating a lot of fun activities for us to take the stress down. But I do feel like the snow day that we had was very helpful, and I do feel that President Pavaza really takes into consideration what we said for next semester and creating more breaks and having even more activities on campus in the spring semester.
From a campus activities board perspective, this semester has been one of the most programmed semesters I've ever had on campus, not just from just from campus activities board, but even from all the other student affairs offices. Even alumni has put in so much work when it comes to programming and bringing in so many different vendors on campus in a safe way. We've done so much in a matter of 3 months. And just looking at program calendars that I've been a part of, it's every single week has like 3 to 4 different programs. Every single weekend has just about been full of different events that are taking place. And the programs that we've had have really done a lot to help with student stress, and have been a way to get away from work and things that we have to do specifically to classrooms and kind of what's going on with our current climate. But at the end of the day, it's a hard time. So there's always going to be something that will come up that will make a lot of the programming harder to attend or go to.
If I could kind of speak to that as well, I think a lot of clubs or organizations on campus have kind of switched up the way they operate. And I'll use the organization I'm a part of as an example, Student Alumni Ambassadors. I know my committee and other committees within the club have really, because we don't have the ability to have events with alumni as much. Alumni doesn't have as much of the ability to come on campus. We can't do homecoming with alumni or the alumni skating party thing, or go off campus and do dinners in Boston, all the things that we usually do as a club. We can't do right now. So that's freed up a lot of time for us to really focus on student engagement. And that was, as I stated before, that was a little bit of what we were aiming to do with homestaying. And the alumni office and SAA partnered with, I think, 8 or 9 different organizations, which is just amazing. I think everybody's really just been working together to make this situation that isn't necessarily the best as good as it can be for everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody else have anything else to add to that? Or any final questions that you all may have for us before we close off? Okay, well, thank you so much everyone for joining us. Thank you to our amazing panelists for answering all of these hard questions, but great questions as well. We hope you all had a great time listening. This is going to be up on the YouTube channel, so anyone that wants to look back at it or anyone that was not able to attend is able to head on there and check it out. Kylie or Patrice, do you guys want to add anything?
Thank you everyone for attending, and please keep an eye out for our upcoming webinars and check out our webinar library for any past events we had.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.